history touched the hand of the future when a Summit landmark found a new home. A farmhouse built in 1747, the oldest house in the city, was relocated to a public park setting. Members of the Carter, Bonnell, and Sayre families called this historic jewel home. Future visitors to the Carter House Historic Museum will call it home for the Summit Historical Society. This story tells about the preservation of the Carter House. This is the lady that started the whole process. Fran, you called me and said, Marge, do you know that Summit's oldest house is about to be demolished? And what happened after that?
Well, Marge took the ball and ran with it right away. And we had a meeting within about 2 days of about 15 people that the two of us had rounded up. And I took off to Florida the next day, and when I came home, everything was rolling beautifully.
Fran, what are your earliest recollections of the house?
Well, of course, I've been married 53 years, and that's my first recollection. But my husband's father and his grandfather were both born in the house, and they go all the way back to the Carters on the maternal side.
The Historical Society was granted the...
This tape was taken by a citizen of Summit by the name of Al Dill. He happens to be interested in what goes on in Summit, and he was at the right place at the right time, right?
He certainly was. And we were having our fingers crossed at this stage, too, because we weren't sure that even though the power lines had been raised and the telephone wires laid down on the ground, we weren't sure that there was enough clearance for the house and the chimney. But thankfully, we made the clearance by about 6 inches to spare.
2 chimneys.
2 chimneys, I might add, yes. And you can see it moving forward now, approaching River Road.
Someone is actually underneath the house. Is that Mr. Welsh, the mover?
No, that is a Mr. Rinaldi, who represented the riggers who actually transported the house on the steel beams, which you perhaps can see.
I notice he's putting a lot of heavy lumber under there. There was quite a difference in elevation between where the house was sitting and the level of River Road. That heavy lumber helped them get up over that.
Yes, they had to move it very slowly at that time. There was about a 3.5 foot elevation there that they had to overcome before they could get it on the level of River Road. Actually, at this stage occurred the only mishap in the whole procedure. A few of the bricks, one of the hearths in the house gave way. But fortunately, the bricks are salvaged and they can be reset once we are in the process of restoring the house.
There weren't any cracked panes of glass?
No, we went around the house afterward and looked very carefully, and we couldn't see that a single pane had been cracked, which of course is terribly important to us because in that house there are some of the original glass, and that's what makes it partly a very historic house and worth preserving.
Oh yes, the inside is really fantastic. It's a beautiful looking example of, as Sandy Brown would say, New Jersey vernacular architecture.
With Dutch influence, if you...
You're well taught.
Yes, I learned that. It's rather a large house. I don't think people understand or appreciate unless they have been inside the house. They haven't realized that, for instance, in the second floor of the house are 4 bedrooms and 1.5 baths. And downstairs, we are looking at 2 windows, one in one parlor and another in a second parlor. And although the house has a central hall, The two rooms on the right are very large, and on the left we have a large dining room with a fireplace and a kitchen and another bath. And then beyond that is a addition to the house. It was made probably at the turn of the century, which included a reception room for Dr. Annison and a consulting room for him. But we're retaining those two additions as well as the main house.
Wendell, I see the big undercarriage there that with the tires, the wheels that actually rolled that house up the street. Those are rather awesome.
The house itself weighs approximately 150 tons, but all the steel beams that they're using to support the house at this time and all the trucking beneath the steel beams adds another 20 tons. So the tractor and the truck that pull this house are pulling 170 tons, which is something like 100 passenger cars.
That's amazing.
There's some of the spectators and many of the people that were in the watching the actual move of the house that day had been involved in the effort to move the house, so it was a day to cheer and smile a lot.
I understand you spoke with some of these people, Marge, in that.
I did,
Real.
and I think that the interview just actually captured the enthusiasm of the day. Everyone was happy and everyone was feeling wonderful about getting it accomplished. We'd worked hard, and there were a lot of times when we thought it would never happen, that their problems were just too insurmountable. I think one of the interesting parts about this particular stage of the move was Mr. Welsh, the mover, perched on top of the roof with a chainsaw, and as they brushed close to the trees that were on the right side of Butler Parkway, if there was a limb in the way, he would stop, cut the limb off so it wouldn't scrape the house. It looked, he was wonderful.
And at times, even on the other side, although they didn't have to cut any branches, they did have to use some hooks to hold the branches away from the house. But we're very thankful that we could accomplish it with so little trimming anywhere along Butler Parkway.
Are they just crossing River Road at this point?
Yes,
Yes, that's right. They're entering Butler Parkway.
This move had to be accomplished during the middle of the day because, as you know, River Road has a great deal of traffic on it, and it would have been just impossible to stop the traffic during rush hour. So they were very careful to put it, it was started about 11:30, wasn't that it?
Well, I think it was
10:30?
10:30 was
10:30.
probably, and we were so thankful that we had 5 police officers on duty at that time to help us control and redirect the traffic. We couldn't have done it so successfully.
Actually, they were
without-
off.
They
pardon
were
me,
off duty, I guess, yes.
How
But it was magnificent the way they controlled the traffic and directed it.
How did you coordinate the phone company and the power company?
This was the responsibility of the general contractor, Mr. Welsh. That was one of the first things that he did, was to contact Jersey Central Power and Light and Jersey Bell to see if they could move the lines successfully. And both of those companies assured Mr. Welsh that it could be done, and they appeared at the proper time with the proper equipment to do the job.
Wonderful.
Well, I don't think it's quite moved across River Road at this point, but the journey started 9 months before that, but how long did it actually take to move up 4/10 of a mile? Am I right?
Well, if they started, and I think they did around 10:30 with their actual moving, I think they were down to the site at Butler Parkway in less than an hour. But of course, the problem then was to shift the house from the street to the excavation, the pre-prepared excavation. A few days before the house moving, the ground for the future basement of this house was excavated. And now, one interesting thing is that they do not build the foundation first and then place the house on the foundation. They simply excavate for the basement, place the house over the excavated basement, and then build the foundation from the ground level up to the sills of the house. And that's what they're doing at the
I'm the general chairman of the fundraising event. Both Sandy and I are vice presidents of the Historical Society, and we're just very, very pleased about the way we've been able to raise the money to move the house. And of course, we've had the help of the whole community, and we're very, very delighted.
Sandy, what's this house going to look like when you get it all put together?
Well, the porch, which looks a little sort of verschmuzzled right now, will have columns across the front, 6 square wooden columns, which are the kind of columns it would have had originally. It's a very good example of a center hall, 5-bay, double pile. One of the things that makes it so important. And while it looks like there are 3 ladies standing here talking, let me say personally that the whole community has been wonderful in supporting this. Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, and the 6th grade class today from Washington School was especially enthusiastic, and I thank them too for their support and help and interest.
We raised enough money.
Well, I noticed the stones were removed quite a while ago, before the house was even
Yes, they were,
moved.
and the temporary pillars were used to support the roof.
This particular shot is one of the barn that was moved with the property. And I understand the barn is not part of the original site, but it is old, and when it is located in its final setting, it will be in back of the house and will be used by the Historical Society for other projects.
Yes, we'll probably use it for storage. It may be necessary sometime to open up one end for a garage, but that's not in the immediate future. I might add about the house, too, that the foundation on the old site at River Road was of stone. Now, we wanted to preserve some of that atmosphere, shall we say, so